Hey guys, outside. I know this is scary for a lot of you. You've spent the entire summer in your rooms reading, and now you're outside. No, you're not outside. I'm outside. Today's video is going to be a little bit different, and I realise that I've said that quite a lot lately. But so, my channel name is Books and Things, and like every time I pronounce that, I really think people must think that I'm a little bit crazy, because it doesn't sound good. But basically the reason that I chose that name was because I already had one channel which was just called Sophie Holden, and it's got my music on it. And I thought about kind of just adding in all of these videos about books to that channel, but that didn't really suit what I wanted to talk about, and it felt a little bit not so good because I want that channel to be viable and usable as showing off my music. And so instead I decided to make another channel, and when I was thinking about what would be on this channel, I thought a lot about what it was exactly that I wanted to be saying on this channel, and a lot of that is about books, and it will continue to be about books, and it will always have books involved in it. But I also wanted a platform where I could kind of tell people about my life, and I also wanted to kind of talk about things that had been happening recently in the real world and kind of talk about them and discuss them. And I realised that that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I realised that if you don't want to watch those videos, you shouldn't have to, and you shouldn't have to kind of figure out which things are which is why I've got quite so many playlists. And things that aren't to do with books are usually in the playlist of things, because it's books and things, and I feel like I'm over-explaining it, so I'm just going to get to the point. As I have mentioned in a kind of previous video very briefly, I work as what is effectively a sex ed teacher. It's not a paid position as much as I wish it was, and it's not something that I get to do all year round. I only get to do it between 3 and 6 times a year, and it's because I work at specific events informing people about sex and drugs and alcohol and peer pressure and friendships and basically anything that you can think of that should be taught in schools but isn't. And so that kind of thing, and I learn a lot from teaching as well as from the training that I have to take in order to be able to teach these things. And the people I teach vary in age, so some things, like everything can be taught to anyone and you do it at different levels, but I teach varying ages. So I think the youngest group of people I've taught is kind of 10, and the eldest is like 40. So it's a spectrum, and the other people in the group that I work in who teach sex ed and other things have taught people younger than that, others have taught people older than that. I will probably teach people both younger and older than that things that they didn't know, and there will probably be many more videos like this that I talk about. So the thing that I want to talk about today is what I'm calling the 3 C's of sex, and this is like your most basic level. Everyone should know this before they start any sort of sexual activity with anyone ever. This is what you need to know. And I'm not going to teach you about where things go or how long you should wait after meeting someone to have sex with them, because all of that is personal preference. Like, it's what you enjoy and it's what you and your partner want to do. So if you've only met them 3 hours ago but both of you want to go and have sex, have sex. If you've known them for 5 years and you've been dating for 4 years and you've been kissing for 4.5 years and you're married or you're almost married or whatever it is that you and your partner are comfortable doing, that is what you should do. The things that I'm going to talk about today are kind of the basics of the stuff that no one talks about, which everyone should know, but no one talks about. So, shall we get started? This is going to be called the 3 C's of sex. Technically, it should be called the 2 C's and the P of sex, but 3 C's sounds better. So, I'm going to start with the first C of sex, which is communication. So, if you don't know, Communication is generally what happens when two or more people talk. And it doesn't have to be actually talking, it's where they say something either with their mouths, or via text, or via video, or via any other means of communication. They could send you a letter, they could do it with their hands, they could do it in sign language, they could pull a face. It's any means of communication. And it is the most important thing that people it is one of the most important things that people just kind of glaze over when they talk about sex. Because if you don't communicate properly, it's just going to end badly. Like, the worst best case scenario is that neither of you will enjoy yourselves. If you're not doing something that's pleasurable because you're too scared to tell them, actually, could you move your hand a little bit? Or actually, could we slow down a little bit? Or could you do this? Or no, you're doing it wrong. Or what feels good? Or does this feel nice? And you need to talk while you're having sex, before you're having sex, after you've had sex, whatever. You need to communicate. If you're gonna have sex for the first time and you're both really nervous, communicate. Say that you're nervous. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to do it, but people can be nervous. You just need to talk, and you should talk as much as possible. And you can say, oh, but it kills the mood. No. What's killing the mood more is probably the fact that you'll be doing it wrong, because neither of you is saying anything. And communication doesn't just happen through your voice. It can happen through your facial expressions. So if you're kissing and you pull apart and they look really uncomfortable, it's probably not the most enjoyable kissing they've ever done. Communication is massively, vitally important, and everyone should do it. The second C of sex is consent. This is a massive issue that, again, no one really talks about. It's massively, massively important. Like, it's the most important thing in sex ever. And yet it's not taught in schools in most cases. And even when it's become an issue, most people are too scared to talk about it. So I'm going to break it down for you. Consent is a very simple rule, but it's a rule that most people overcomplicate and try to worm their way out of it applying to them. Consent applies to everyone, all the time. It doesn't matter who you are. If you haven't got consent, you can't do that. So, with consent for sexual acts, there are some very simple rules. Number 1, no means no. This means that if she says no, or if he says no, or if they say no, you stop. You stop right then, and you don't go any further, and you communicate about what you want to do. Because if they have said no, they are not comfortable with what is happening, and you need to stop. You need to, right then. If you continue to do whatever it is that you're doing that they've said no to, you are sexually harassing them, and you can be charged with rape. If you're charged with rape, you can end up on the sex offenders list, you can be fired from your job, you can be arrested, you can serve time in jail. You need to stop as soon as they say no. That is how that works. Rule number 2. You can't coerce them into saying yes. This means that you can't say, oh, but you promised last time, or, but this time you said we could, or, but you were fine with it last time, or, babe, you know you want to. That is not okay. Anything like that is not okay, and it's called coercion. And again, if you coerce someone into an act that they don't want to do, you can face charges, you can face arrest, you can face jail time. And more importantly than all of that, really, you're just being a dick. You're being really quite disrespectful and rude and quite horrible, really. You're disregarding someone's right to say yes or to say no. And that is their right and not yours, and nothing to do with you, and you have absolutely no right to take that away from them. So if they say no, stop. If they say maybe or they're hesitant, you cannot coerce them. This also applies to if they say no. You can't coerce them into doing something. Rule number 3. Intoxication prevents consent. This means that if they're so drunk that they're having trouble, walking in a straight line or even answering anything properly, they cannot consent. Even if they say yes, you cannot rely on that yes because they are intoxicated. Even if they're not so drunk as to be falling over, if they are at a level of intoxication where their answers for things may be different than if they were sober, you can't trust their yes. Because intoxication means that you answer things differently, it means that you behave differently. Your inhibitions are lowered and the way that you think about things is changed. So if they say yes, you can't trust that answer. You can't even approach the question because they are intoxicated. And this is from alcohol, this is from drugs. You can't trust consent when the person is intoxicated. And this applies for you as well. If you're so intoxicated that you think it's a fantastic idea to sleep with that person that you've never talked to before in your life, you're probably too intoxicated. All of these rules also apply to you. If you don't want to be doing what you're doing, you can stop. If you're no longer sure about what's going on, you can stop. And all of that is fine for you to do as well. There is no rule that says because you initiated it, you have to follow it through. That's not anywhere near true. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, stop. If at any point they feel uncomfortable, stop. It's quite simple. So consent is something that a lot of people don't really think about because it's never really taught in schools or anywhere else really. But it is incredibly important and it's a rule that you have to follow. There's no weaseling around it or getting out of it. Consent has to happen. So I'm just quickly going to go through a list of things that are not consent. This does not qualify as consent. Being undressed, being naked, kissing, any other sexual act, previously having committed the sexual act that you're interested in continuing, saying no, saying maybe, if you spent a lot of money on the evening, if she's leading you on, none of those qualify as consent. The only thing that qualifies is a firm yes. The third C of sex should technically be called a P, because the C itself stands for contraception. However, that said, that only applies if one of you has a penis and one of you has a vagina. So really what it should be called is protection. Protection is incredibly important, and if you and your partner haven't both been recently tested, then using protection is your only guarantee to prevent spread of STIs. So, what options do you have? Well, first off, condoms. They protect from STIs and they protect against unwanted pregnancies. If you have both been screened and tested for STIs and you are both clean and there's no chance that either of you has got anything funky going on, then you can also look at other forms of contraception to make sure that there isn't a risk of pregnancy. And those can involve the pill, the implant, both types of the coil, the cap, which in America is known as the diaphragm. These are all different types of contraception that stop pregnancy happening, but they do not prevent STIs. Condoms and femidoms are the only type of protection that also protect from STIs. It's also important to think about the fact that some people may not be having penetrative sex. This means that there are other options, including gloves and masks, so that you can't transfer STIs from one part of the body to another, or from your mouth to genitalia. It's incredibly important that you and your partner get tested if you want to continue having repeated sex, or that you use protection. As a side note, if you are using condoms, you should change the condom every 30 minutes or every time that you switch activity because of spread and wear in the condoms. I will be doing another video at some point about how you can check what protection is good to use and which type best suits you and your partner and the situation that you're in. So this has been a very hopefully brief overview of 3 of the most important things that are kind of forgotten about a lot of times. I hope this video was helpful, or at least mildly informative. If you don't want to watch any more of these sex ed videos, that's fine. They will be in their own separate playlist. But I would encourage you to think about these things before you decide to go and have sex or commit any other sexual acts, as it is important to understand the 3 C's of sex. So, brief overview: communication, contraception, consent. And I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye! I'm sorry, I said let's break it down, and then my immediate response is to say, look at the factors before it happens again, because I for one, and then I've got Buffy songs trailing into my head, and that's not helpful. And I'm wearing a dress, this feels very strange. So, Momo, walk right past me, it's fine. I apologise for the cat. There may be others, they appear. I can't control them. Oh, my neighbours are gonna love me. If you watch Lacey Green's videos, which I would massively recommend, she's really fantastic at kind of informing people about things and teaching and explaining, and fantastic. Go and watch her videos. I will leave her channel in the description below.